Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rutherford County School Board meeting, April 19th, 2023. First on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance by Sergeant Harris. She's one of our recruiters. We're honored to have you tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sergeant Harris. Next will be a moment of silence. I would like to recognize the Laverne Police Department and the passing of Lieutenant Hayes. Thank you so much. We've got a packed agenda. We've got a packed house tonight. Welcome, everybody. Glad to see everybody here. We have a lot of speakers, and we're going to try to get everybody in that 30 minutes time slot. So first on our agendas, we need an approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Bratton. Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to oppose or abstain? Agenda passes. Approval of the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to abstain or oppose? The consent agenda passes. Thank you so much. So first up, we have visitors, and these are taken, we've got about 15, and we've got 30 minutes for speakers, and we're going to take them in the order that they were submitted to Ms. Hopkins. There's some who have already told us that they're not going to speak, so if you are here, please let us know when we call your name. You can come up. So, Ms. Leah Matlin.
Hi, friends. I want to start by saying that I'm so glad to see that this board is voting to codify and increase the salaries of our employees. This is long overdue, and all our employees from central office to the classroom to the lunchroom deserve higher compensation for their tireless work on behalf of our children. This is an excellent use of funds, and I hope the whole board will vote to approve the new salary schedule. I also want to say a word on the upcoming special called meeting to consider the application of American Classical Academy Rutherford. I've heard members of this board say that they were elected to be cautious with taxpayer money, and I really respect that sentiment. I encourage the board to apply that caution to this charter school application. All of you have been wrestling with our budget, and I know that each and every one of you is deeply aware of the challenges we face as a continually growing district. I've sat in this room and I've listened to you discuss where you are going to find the money to pay for desperately needed building projects and services. We don't have the spare cash to support a charter school which will serve less than 1% of our student population. The nonpartisan group Public School Partners has estimated that our initial cost would be $3.4 million, and the potential full annual cost to taxpayers will be close to $7 million a year. Now, you may say that state funding follows the student, but what does not follow the student is fixed costs. Even if you take 2 students out of this classroom, 3 students out of that classroom, we still have to pay the teachers, pay the admin, pay the staff, pay for building maintenance. The list goes on and on and on. American Classical Academy is a burden on Rutherford County taxpayers. It will not help us with any real problems we have. Serving a few hundred kids does not solve overcrowding. Our schools are excellent, so this will not improve the education our kids are receiving. We're going to have to dig into our own taxpayer pockets to find money to support this school, and that money should be going to the district we all moved here for. So, you all know that I'm a proud public school parent. I am also a proud homeschool parent. I educate my youngest at home because I feel that his current needs are best met that way. But I also want you to know that I do not expect taxpayers to pay for my choice. In fact, I continue to work with the district to try to improve services so that my son and all children can have their needs met by public schools. Please don't make it harder for our dedicated staff to meet our children's needs. I urge you to vote against ACAR's application next week.
Thank you, Ms. Matlin. Next up is Ms. Morgan Woodbury. I didn't think I saw her. She was a candidate for District 13. She's up in my neck of the woods. Ms. Morgan Woodbury? Okay. Next up is Ms. Angela Wynn.
Good evening. My name is Angela Wynn, parent of 3 Rutherford County School students, and I am here regarding American Classical Academy Rutherford's charter school proposal. American Classical Academy's curriculum is a, quote, complete collection of lesson plans for teaching American history, civics, and government to K-12 students. ACAR uses Hillsdale College's 1776 curriculum, and for those who aren't familiar with Hillsdale College, they actually had a very popular lecture on how the January 6th insurrection was a hoax. So you can see how much their view of history differs from what is actually history. To create a curriculum aimed at spreading misleading information because no one wants to face the fact that this country was built on white supremacy is disturbing. To teach it to the most vulnerable of us, our children, is indoctrination. According to the Hillsdale curriculum, quote, students learn how Abraham Lincoln understood the nation's division over slavery to be a question of objective moral truth, and how only in acknowledging the moral evil of slavery and working to return it to the path of extinction would America's founding ideas be proven true. Now, this to me is unsettling, considering Lincoln was very vocal in not interfering with slavery as it existed, but later changed his mind and used emancipation as a military strategy because he knew there were thousands of enslaved people who were ready to fight on the side of the Union. I guess these are the morals ACAR thinks are appropriate for our children to learn. So long as those in power are able to get the results they want, there's no obligation or thought to the welfare of those who were powerless in the situation. But it doesn't end there. It also teaches that Dr. King, quote, appealed to the individual conscience and not the force of law to bring about a colorblind society, end quote. Which we know is not true because Dr. King's speech in 1967 refutes that entirely. The perversion of his infamous line about wanting his children to be seen by the content of their character is misleading to the legacy of Dr. King, and honestly is why we have such problems in society today. Because our leaders, my leaders, were turned into feel-good stories instead of lessons to be learned on how we can overcome the inequities that are still looming in this country. They've been reduced to a couple of pages in a book that has stripped them of what their true ideals were. I will leave you with Hillsdale's key learning takeaway on the results of the Civil War so you can understand why my children and no children should ever be exposed to their version of history. Quote, this conflict was resolved, but at a cost of more than 600,000 lives. Constitutional amendments were passed to abolish slavery, grant equal protection under the law, and guarantee the right to vote regardless of race. Yet the damage done by the denial of core American principles and by the attempted substitution of a theory of group rights in their place proved widespread and long-lasting. Thus, indeed, are the direct ancestors of the destructive theories that totally divide and tear the fabric of our country. So basically, we're divided as a country because we denied core American principles by ending slavery early instead of letting it resolve on its own. This is what you think should be taught to our children, and this is what you want us to pay for? Not me.
Thank you, Ms. Wynn. Next up is Reverend Joy Warren.
Good evening. I'm Reverend Joy Warren, and I live in District 6. I'd like to share some comments on the ACAR charter application. When our family relocated to Rutherford County 10 years ago, I heard from many people what wonderful public schools were here. My husband and I are both pastors. We've worked with kids from various schools across the county. I volunteer with CASA, and I've visited my kids in foster care at their schools and met many of their staff there. When we moved here, we had a 4th grader and a 6th grader. Our oldest child earned the full IB diploma from Oakland High School, and our youngest just graduated from Central Magna as a valedictorian, earning recognition from some of you as a National Merit Scholar. We experienced seemingly unending choice and opportunities with our children in these schools. In 9 years of our involvement with families,
I never heard parents yearning for an alternative school where their children could learn white Western ideals and Latin. In fact, what I did hear was the need for more cultural sensitivity and acceptance of diversity. We live in a diverse community with children from various backgrounds who deserve to see themselves and their stories reflected in the curriculum and the art and culture of their ancestors lifted up as beauty. As a faith leader, I believe in the beloved community, and I believe that what is being called parent choice is a barrier to building that community. I've reviewed the reasons this charter application was denied in a vote of 6-1, and I've read the application submitted this year. I do not see where the previous concerns have been addressed. Teacher licensure is still not required. It's not clear how the curriculum aligns with state standards, nor what the process will be to make it align. There's no board representation from Rutherford County, nor is there anyone with a K-12 background. I reviewed the budget, and I don't see an allowance for substitute teacher costs or custodians. The revenue assumes extra TISA amounts allotted for disadvantaged families in rural areas without being clear that those children will actually be served by the school. I see no reason why you should take money from our existing public schools and give it to what amounts to privatized education with no record of success. If parents want that choice, let them choose private schools. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Warren. Next is, Sean McNerney. Sean McNerney.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak at tonight's board meeting, Mr. Sullivan and board members. Thank you all in uniform as well as a retired veteran. It's great to see y'all. What I'm going to talk about today is Riverdale wrestling program and how the coaches got left out. There are two sides to every story, and only one side was told, and that's unfair and very unprofessional to the youth at Riverdale Wrestling and the coaches. There are 3 C's of coaching that I feel are very important as a former coach and which I'd like to share. Coaching begins with a coaching perspective. How you look at situations determine whether you see the coaching opportunities that are available or whether you simply see more problems. To look at the world through the eyes of a coach, you need 3 things. The first thing is curiosity. You won't see possibilities and situations unless you're curious about what's possible. Coaches are curious about all things. How much people can grow, the change, how things can be done differently, ways to work as a team positively, how can we grow as an organization. The second C is compassion. Coaches have compassion for people, all people. They understand that everyone, themselves included, are trying hard and doing their best, even when the best isn't too impressive. They recognize the faces of fear in people who are gruff or short, and others of who step away instead of stepping forward in the face of a challenge. They remember when they're afraid themselves, and they have compassion for the fearful as well as those who are gifted with the confidence to step into the headwinds of life full on. The third C is courage. It always cracks me up when people tell me that coaching is fluffy and soft. It's anything but. True coaching requires the courage to tell the truth, to stay in the conversation even when emotions run high, and to risk believing that change is possible when everyone else says it can't be done. Dealing with parents, dealing with students, dealing with administrators, as well as dealing with your home life. That's what courage looks like. How do the 3 C's show up in your work? Do you need to get more curious about what's possible in a situation that seems stuck? Have you chosen to judge others and dismiss them rather than having compassion on who they are? Where would a bit more courage make the greatest difference right now? Coaching begins with you and I, and the willingness to step into whatever life brings us through adversity, and we as adults need to use the 3 C's of curiosity, compassion, and courage. This is completely about our youth and how they are raised. The youth need coaches like Eric and Dario at Riverdale. These kids look up to Eric and Dario as their coaches, mentors, and lastly, their educators. They have instilled discipline, courage, empathy, compassion, work ethic, as well as Statistics show, and most importantly,
Sir,
self-respect.
your time is up. Your time is up.
This is what our kids need. I have more if you wouldn't mind after the fact if we can discuss.
Thank you, thank you. Next is Amanda Newbern. That 3 minutes goes by fast.
Good evening, board members. My name is Amanda Newbern, and I'm here to speak to you on behalf of the Riverdale wrestling coaches. While I acknowledge there have been some recent issues, I want to share our positive experience. My daughter Madison was new to Riverdale High School this past year, and I had some concerns given the negative press the school had leading up to her starting there. And I was afraid to let her go to school events, especially given how much she missed out on during COVID. But the coaches went, they sat together as a team, and because of them, she was able to participate in the high school experience she had been denied her first 2 years. Just after starting school, Madison was diagnosed with a brain tumor. Her coaches supported and encouraged her every step of the way. Being a high school girl with hair nearly to her waist, she was devastated to cut her hair. To our surprise, many of her teammates shaved their heads in solidarity, even though she was the new girl. And if you've ever seen a sick wrestling mullet, you know what a gift that is. Leading up to surgery, Coach Sakarzik texted us often to check on us outside of school hours, in the evenings, on the weekends. He even managed the homebound schooling paperwork so that I didn't have to miss out on family time tying up loose ends to get her the services that she needed. The day of surgery, the team FaceTimed her from the mat during practice, and it was the only time she smiled that whole day as she laid in the ICU. Her first visitors getting home weren't family. She actually had 4 visitors, her coaches, Coach Sakarzik, Coach Rudis, Coach Keeley, and Coach Jalen. They brought flowers and candy, which is usually a no-no during the season, and they stayed and visited, not for a few minutes, but for hours on a weekend away from their families. When Madison was cleared to return to practice, she had to wear a helmet, which made her self-conscious. Coach Rudis gave her that smile. It's elusive. You don't see it often. And he indicated that he understood. And then he told her, put it on and get it out there because your pride's not worth your safety. And then he walked her to the mat because she was embarrassed to go out there. She returned to competition a month before state. She struggled to get back on weight, but she persisted and made it. She went from never winning a match at regionals to taking 5th in state this year after 1 month back on the mats. There's no doubt these coaches are the reason that she did that. These men aren't only great coaches, they're great teachers, and I appreciate everything that they do for her. Wrestling is a combat sport, and it takes a great amount of mental and physical toughness to persevere. It also takes a coach with a little grit to harness that. Sometimes the methods don't align with what outsiders expect. This team is a family. Sometimes you get tough love instead of coddling, and woe to the outsider who tries to hurt their teammates. I believe in law and order and justice. I'm a combat veteran, and I'm married to a law enforcement officer, but I know that life happens in shades of gray and not black and white. I acknowledge recent events, and I think there are other disciplinary actions that could be considered in this circumstance. These coaches love their wrestlers and their students.
Thank you, Ms. Newbern. Next up is Dr. Jeremy Abner.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Jeremy Aber. I'm a citizen of Rutherford County, as well as the chair of the Rutherford County chapter of Statewide Organizing for Community Empowerment. I'm here to voice my opposition to charter schools in Rutherford County. I do not have any children of my own, but I have many, many children in the public school system here in the county. And what I mean when I say that is that I am a professor at MTSU, and the kids that are in the K-12 system now are going to be the students in my classroom in a few years' time. I know that we have one of the best K-12 school systems in the state, and it means that when those students reach me, they're prepared for success and prepared to make a difference in the community and the world, assuming they don't party too much. I'm opposed to charter schools in general, and this pending Classical Academy proposal in particular, for several reasons. The first is that charters that don't charge tuition will necessarily provide fewer resources per student. It's basic accounting that if a profit-seeking institution receives the same amount per student as a public school, it's going to be incapable of providing the same level of resources because they're skimming off the top. One of the ways this often plays out in charters is that they do not provide the resources necessary for students with special needs. Charters will claim that they can provide better outcomes than public schools, but they do this by systematically discriminating against students who have special needs. If If you have a student with an IEP in the public system, they will not get the same level of care in a charter if they're even allowed to be admitted in the first place. That's unacceptable to me, as the entire point of education is to give everyone the tools they need to succeed. America claims to be a meritocracy, but charters often make a mockery of this by discriminating against students. I'm also deeply concerned that the Classical Academy Network is one that openly provides questionable knowledge to students in order to further a political agenda. There are many arguments about cultural and political issues in public schools and what and how we should be teaching them. I think a healthy debate about this is perfectly acceptable and can often provide students with some needed perspective on the world. But the Classical Academy Network explicitly promotes materials that are widely criticized by academic historians, sociologists, and other academics as biased or even outright false in some cases. On that same note, I simply cannot support a school that has Larry Arnn as one of its guiding leaders. Remember, he is the man who described teachers as being, quote, trained in the dumbest parts of the dumbest colleges in the country, and that, quote, anyone can teach. We know that's not true, and that's insulting to all the hardworking educators in our community. This is not the first time that Classical Academy has put in a proposal here in Rutherford County. They didn't meet the requirements last time, and they seem to have not made any significant changes to their application this time around either. I find that also insulting to the hardworking educators of Rutherford County. Finally, I have to pull the classic taxpayer card. I live here, I pay my taxes, and I want my taxes to go towards our excellent, outstanding public school system, not to fund a private institution that will not serve all the children and has a warped political motivation behind it. We have a great system here in Rutherford County. There's no need for us to make it worse by giving away money to a private charter school. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Eber. I apologize for butchering your name. Next on guest speaker is Ms. Heather Von Lowe.
Thank you so much. Riverdale Wrestling has helped my daughter in a number of ways. It has showed her a discipline that can only be learned and not taught. She has dealt with a bully, and instead of retaliating, she has showed grace. I do believe that a lot of that is because of the coaches. Grace has grown up without a father. He died when she was 3. The coaches have taken wrestling and showed these kids that no matter what cards they were dealt, that they can do better. That even when you think you have nothing left, you have the power and the mind to keep going. They push these kids to be better humans. They push them so that they can see it for themselves. My point is, you have some really amazing coaches at Riverdale, that they care more about the child than the trophy, and that is hard to find. If this was any other sport, everything would have been swept under the rug. There are a lot worse things going on with other Riverdale sports that need to be addressed. The double standards have to stop. All things aside, as an end result, I pray that you allow these coaches to do what they do best, and that is teaching and coaching. If they are not a good fit for Riverdale, I completely understand, but I pray that you allow them the opportunity to help more kids find their full potential wherever they go. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Number 9 has chosen not to speak, so next up will be Ms. Brianna Grisham.
I'm here to speak on behalf of the Riverdale wrestling coaches. Both of my daughters are on the wrestling team, and they have helped them both. My youngest was diagnosed with major depression, and since she had started wrestling, she has gotten off her medication and has thrived and made it to state this year. My oldest daughter she started out having to take bathroom breaks every 5 minutes just because she was tired and didn't want to wrestle, and now you can't rip her off the wrestling mat. And now she is on the girls nationals team representing the state of Tennessee. And they would have not have gotten there without Coach Sakarzik and Coach Rudis. With that, the girls as a team all have developed like standards. They want their teammates to have standards also. And wrestling is the girls' wrestling is becoming a really fast rising sport. And for the Riverdale to lose Coach Sakarzik and Coach Rudis that have been trying so hard to just get people just to even see it. Like, we can't, it's the oldest sport there is. It's a one-on-one sport, and it makes the wrestlers strong just as themselves in their own identity. We never got a definition of why they were dismissed as coaches. We never got any kind of explanation. We're frustrated, we're angry, we want answers. That's all I got. I'm not a big talker.
Thank you, Ms. Grisham. Thank you, Ms. Grisham. So the next speaker is Reverend Brenda Bryant. As she's coming to the podium, I would like to address Ms. Woodbury, who has signed up to speak. I've moved you to the end of the list. We've got 30 minutes. We're going to try to get you in if we can fit everybody in the 30 minutes, okay? Welcome, Ms. Bryant. Reverend Bryant, excuse me.
Madam Chair and fellow board members, it's an honor to stand before you today and to speak in support of charter schools here in Rutherford County. I'd like to first say that I'm a pastor in the Laverne community. My husband and I started a church there. I'm also a widow now because he just recently passed. I'm a mother and I'm a community leader. And currently I live in the Smyrna, Tennessee area. I have 2 children who attended Laverne Primary, Roy Waldron School, Laverne Middle School, Stewart's Creek, and also graduated from Blackman High School. So I have a pretty good idea of how the school system runs. And not only that, I worked in the school system as a substitute teacher for almost 15 years. I worked as an ISS teacher for about 3 years at Roy Waldron School. So I have a pretty good pulse on the community. And as a longtime resident and local pastor who works closely with families and children in the area, I just want to let you know here today that I wholeheartedly support the approval of American Classical Academy here in Rutherford County. The school has demonstrated a strong commitment to providing students with a rigorous and comprehensive education that emphasizes the value of critical thinking, academic excellence, and character development. And I'm sure most parents in here, we want the best for our children. And our parents deserve to have a choice. They deserve to have an option. They deserve to hear the application of the classical school and then make a decision. The leadership of the American Classical Academy of Rutherford County, they're dedicated to, who I know personally, some of the people who are deeply invested in the success of the students of this community. They work tirelessly to create a supportive, nurturing learning environment that encourages students to take risks, explore new ideas, and develop a love of learning that will serve them throughout the years. This academy, I've watched them. I've talked to the leadership there. They're concerned about the moral fabric of the children. I am confident that American Classical Academy of Rutherford will be a valuable asset to their community. I'm proud to support the efforts to provide students with a first-rate education that prepares them for success in college and beyond. I believe that this school is an excellent choice, and parents need choice. As a parent, I need a choice for my children who are looking for a high-quality education, a classical education that will help their children to achieve their full potential.
Thank you.
So I want to
Thank you, Reverend Bryant.
today.
Reverend
that we
Bryant,
support-
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your work in the community also. Next up is Ms. Jennifer Young.
Empowering today's students to grasp tomorrow's opportunities. You know what will make that a reality? A classical option. Truth, beauty, and goodness will make that a possibility. You know what will not? The same learning style for every single student in the district. We need choices for families. I had a special needs son who thrived in a classical education environment. He had Down syndrome, and he did amazingly well while we were involved in a classical education. It wasn't until I put him in the public school system on an IEP that he regressed severely over the 10 months because they were not able to provide the service that he needed during his time there. The classical model is based on grammar, logic, and rhetoric. The grammar stage is lots of repetition. It's exactly what he needed, and it worked beautifully for him. Do I believe he would have gotten to the logic and the rhetoric? Probably not. But for sure, grammar all the way through would have been beautiful. Grammar, logic, and rhetoric is what we all use to learn any new skill or any new tool. This is what we would be introducing these families to and our families to. And of course, why not teach our kids that? Would that be great? Single families, I work with homeschoolers and families who are considering homeschooling often, and they call me and they talk to me, what would it look like for me as a single parent to homeschool my child? And I'm like, you just can't do it. You're not going to have enough time in the day to work and do it. For there to be options for these parents, like a classical model, would be beautiful. Again, it's very sad to tell families that there are particular options that would be difficult for them to do. I do believe single moms can homeschool or single dads can homeschool, but it's very difficult. Same with grandmothers who have to work. Same with lower income families who have to both work. It would be hard to do other options. You can't afford the private school. A classical model is a proven model for education, and it's been around for years and years. And I just want to ask you, what we've heard today about the current charter school application and what the charter school would offer these kids, is it true what they said? Is it good what the charter school wants to do? And do we believe that beauty is something we want our children to engage in? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. How are we on time? Next up is Ms. Sienna Hall. I believe she's probably going to be the last one, right? Because we've got 9 minutes left. Okay, so thank you.
I'll be quick.
You're fine.
Thanks, y'all. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. As the president of Rutherford Education Association, I'm here on behalf of teachers and classified staff. I want to emphasize how much we need the raise that you're voting on tonight. Of the board meetings I've watched or attended, I've repeatedly heard members of this board express how much they want to give us a pay raise. And after the long-awaited salary study, we're finally at the moment to make that a reality. But I realize that this decision requires weighing a lot of factors. But if you're having any doubts about improving the pay increase now, I would ask you to consider hearing from some teachers. Talk to the teacher who works a second job to put their kid through college, or the one who's fortunate enough to have found a second job where she can get some papers graded while she's there at night. Talk to the EA who has moved out of the county to find an affordable rent. Talk to the new college graduate who chooses a teaching position in another part of the state because housing is more affordable there. Or the one who graduates with a teaching degree but doesn't end up taking the teaching job because it turns out he can make more money managing Pizza Hut. Talk to the teacher who chooses to go up the road to work in Metro because they pay more. Talk to the college student who doesn't even consider pursuing a teaching degree because she doubts the salary will pay the bills, let alone afford her the lifestyle she desires. These are not hypotheticals. These are my friends and my coworkers. Everyone is trying to make ends meet and live a good life. Whether custodians, cafeteria workers, education assistants, central office staff, or classroom teachers, we all play an important role in creating the quality of our schools in Rutherford County. The work we do in our schools, I believe, is the most important work on the planet. And that's why I'm asking you to please take care of the people who are taking care of the children. Please approve tonight's proposed salary schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Next up is Mr. Chase Williams.
I don't know how I follow all that. Madam Chairman, tonight I rise because I wanted to bring some attention to some things. Last night I watched the work session, and some of the behavior that was exhibited was appalling. disrespectful, and out of order. You know, Miss Darby last night raised some questions, and some board members tried to characterize that she didn't believe teachers deserve a raise. That's emphatically not true. I don't think anybody in this county does not think that our frontline teachers deserve a real working wage. They do. Now, central office staff, they work hard too, but you know, I've seen what their pay scales are. They're paid pretty good. But our frontline teachers, I mean, like the one just said, they can go all the way up to Metro and get $10,000 more than they make here. It's ridiculous. We need to pay our teachers more. Secondly, then one board member said that she would be willing to donate her pay back. Well, that's kind of funny because on March 8th to the 10th, while the board was attending a well-needed, well-deserved retreat, going through training on how to act better as a board, this particular board member, rather than attending a seminar on Robert's Rules of Order, decided to, while on the taxpayer dime, sit down at the bar at the Swanee Inn. I'm sorry, that's theft. That's taxpayer theft. It's unacceptable. There is a reason why all legislative bodies use some form of Robert's Rules of Orders to keep decorum. There's a reason why. So that as board members ask different members that they need to get information from, they have the floor unencumbered, and you can get through the information in a timely manner. More often than not, I see board members tripping over each other, interjecting when they should be listening. And I think that this board needs to adopt a policy that before you speak, you should be recognized by the chair. That ensures that each one of you gets your questions answered and each one of you gets your say. But the behavior last night that was shown, and it's live for everybody to see, is abysmal. It's depressing. It's disgusting. And I know y'all can do better. I've seen you do better. So I hope you will take those words to heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Next up is Ms. Angela Knoll.
Good evening, board. Thank you for allowing us to be here. I am a director for a classical education co-op here in Murfreesboro. Classical education teaches students how to learn, where traditional education teaches students what to learn. It is an ancient model of the trivium, which is Latin for 3 roads. The early years are the grammar stage when young students memorize the building blocks they need later in life. The middle road is the dialectic stage, when students have logical questions to understand the earlier building blocks that they had previously learned. The final road is the rhetoric stage, where the knowledge and understanding of the previous 2 stages aid a student in forming their own conclusions with a clear and concise language. The beauty of classical education is in the simplicity, where it is truly needed this time, with good time, good books, and rich conversations with other people who are truly passionate about education. Our students that have graduated from our classical program are better prepared for college more than most because they have truly learned how to teach themselves anything from the ground up. They are well-spoken men and women who feel confident in tackling difficult theses and in-depth conversations about anything as much as Greek culture and the Roman culture. It would benefit families in our community to have a strong option for educating the next generation of wise and knowledgeable citizens of Murfreesboro. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. That is our time limit on our last speaker. Board members, I've seen Ms. Morgan Woodbury has entered the building. She was late. She is the last speaker. I will entertain a motion to suspend the rules if our board members choose to allow her to speak.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Come on up, Ms. Woodbury. Welcome to Rutherford County Schools. It's good to see you again.
Thank you all for allowing me to speak. I'm going to be very, very brief. So I come to you guys as a community leader, but also as a graduate of Rutherford County Schools. I graduated from Laverne High School in 2014, and I went on to graduate from MTSU. I currently have 2 degrees in social work, and as I said, I am the first Black African-American chair of the Rutherford County Party. I want you guys to know that the work that the Rutherford County Schools have done has been impactful. I've graduated. I have friends that have graduated. We're entrepreneurs now. You guys have been impactful in doing that, and I want us to continue doing that. One of the teachers that spoke before, she said that charter schools focus on teaching the kids how to learn. And a part of that is true. And I feel like a part of the way that I learned was from those teachers at the schools that we have now, taking the extra time to learn me and to learn what it is that I needed. I have an autistic nephew that is currently at Cedar Grove Elementary. When he started, he was mute. He had a very hard time speaking. Now, in 2 years, he can say complete sentences. He can speak to us fully, and he can communicate. He can read. He can spell. All of that happened at Cedar Grove in 2 years. I have another nephew that's a high school student at Laverne. He's making A's now. He's a transfer from Oklahoma schools. He's only been here 1 semester. That is the improvement. That is the results that we have at our school. And I just want you guys to continue to consider that as you're making your choice today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Woodbury. It's good to see you out in the public and working with you again. So, Dr. Sullivan, would you like to address some of the comments now?
So just one of the things on here, so we have policy interscholastic athletics, so 4.301, so parents from Riverdale definitely hear those concerns. As a director of schools and with our policy, it clearly states interscholastic athletics shall be administered as part of the regular school program and shall be the principal's responsibility. As the director of schools, I support our principals and what decisions they make for coaching. It's not something that you always love to hear with coaching changes, but unfortunately with sports, that's something that occurs. In this situation, since you did mention it, the only time somebody would not be permitted to make a coaching move to a different school would involve my being involved in that, and I have not been involved in this situation. And to discuss personnel matters, I will leave it at that. Absolutely.
And you're also welcome to come back to our next school board meeting and speak. Anybody else is welcome, okay? So we have next recognition. Thank y'all so much for bearing with us and getting through all the speakers.
All right, so Colonel Rector, I'd like to call you up. So Colonel Rector is our Director of Army Instruction for Rutherford County Schools and our junior ROTC. So thank you, Colonel Rector, and members that are here with you for your service, and I will turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. 4 years ago, the day before COVID closed this all down, the school board approved some criteria to recognize the Distinguished Leader graduates. We've now awarded them for 3 years. This is the 3rd year. Cadets, what's the best way to lead other people? By example. You came up with criteria for 3 different areas of what we're looking for to lead by example. We want them to be physically tough. We want them to be intellectually sharp, and we want them to be emotionally stable and calm. The criteria that you approved is 4 years of ROTC, all 4 years. Have to have completed 12 hours of service learning during their senior year. They cannot have had any disciplinary issues in the previous 3 years. Have to have a 3.5 GPA overall and a 4.0 for all ROTC classes. They have to have a 22 on the ACT. They have to hold the rank of Command Sergeant Major or Captain or above. They have to have been participating in one of our extracurricular activities for 3 years, and they have to have been its team captain in one of the last 2 years. They have to have gone to our summer camp, kind of like our basic training, and they also have to have scored the National Fitness Award criteria in each of the 5 events of our physical fitness test during their senior year. These 8 cadets have done exactly that. And so I'd like to give them a round of applause for being some of the best. Thank you very much. I'm going to call each one up, and as they are getting the graduation stole from Chairman Sharp and a medal and certificate from our Director of Schools, I think you're going to see that there are some commonalities in all of these cadets. The first one from Blackman, Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Tyler J. Knight. Tyler is going to basic training in AIT this summer. He will go to MTSU on scholarship after he's joined the Army. Our next one, Cadet Captain Christian N. Lewis from Blackman. Christian is enlisting in the Navy. He is literally going to be a nuclear scientist. He's going into nuclear science. When he completes his time in the Navy, he plans to go to the Naval Academy in Annapolis. From Laverne, Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Riley Hill. She is receiving an Army ROTC scholarship, and she's got enough money to pay for all scholarship or all tuition at Belmont University. Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Gabriel Hall from Oakland. He has got a Minuteman scholarship, a 4-year ROTC scholarship, and will attend MTSU next year. We got the certificate right, but we didn't get her rank right up here. The next one is Cadet Major Hannah Cole from Oakland High School. She has a Minuteman scholarship, a 3-year ROTC scholarship, and will also attend MTSU next year. Cadet Captain Martin Muller, also from Oakland. And he is receiving scholarships and will attend the Citadel next year. From Siegel, Cadet Major Thomas Morris. He also will have an ROTC scholarship going to MTSU, where he will study business administration. And our last, from Stewart's Creek, Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Brock Ramsey. He is going to Mississippi State. He has multiple scholarships. He is going to study aerospace engineering. He is also the valedictorian of Stewart's Creek High School. One last thing I'd like to say. Your senior Army instructors chose you for the leadership positions you've had. This year, you have proven that their choices were correct. 4 of these young men and women are their cadet battalion commanders. 2 of them are the number 2, and the other 2 are company commanders. So I think the senior Army instructors are doing a great job of picking good people to lead.
Mr. McDaniel, will you see if Stacy's logged in? Is she good already? Okay.
Nice. Give just a few minutes. We're going to be zooming someone in. Yes. Number 8.
All right, so number 8 is our approval of our salary study scale for 23-24, board goal number 3, tab 2. Before we begin, I just wanted to read something quickly. So we started our salary study journey, and we shared that last night. First, I have led and will continue to lead with transparency. Many of you have worked with me for at least 4 years, some of you longer, and you know that is how I lead and will continue to lead. I won't succumb to questions around integrity or get into a debate around those things. But for the record, all board members have had all files that I have had since April 6th. Yes, files are large and cumbersome. However, I have to go with and trust the work that our contracted group of Evergreen Solutions did. As such, last night I reached out to Evergreen Solutions so they would be available to answer board member questions. So we have Stacy here from Evergreen, and she will be here to answer any board member questions. They work with higher ed, K-12, local gov, all across the board. Is she here with us? Perfect. Can we put her on that too? Nope, okay. Hey, Stacy.
Hi, how is everybody?
Do we have a way to address volume? Okay. Okay, what about to hear her?
Can you hear me?
Not well.
Here's your mic too.
Not yet, okay. Quiet isn't usually a problem for me. The teacher voice comes back really quickly.
You just use your mic, John, and shift it. Okay.
Is that better?
Stacy, can you talk to see if we can hear you?
Yeah, how about now?
Just use your mic, John.
Use his desk mic.
Just
Is that better?
Very
Barely.
small.
How about now?
Can the audience hear? Can everyone in the audience hear?
I think the audience can hear better than we can.
They might be, y'all may be able to hear better. The acoustics are different up here.
So, thank you, Stacy, for being available. I know you've put together just a quick summary on about a 3 or 4 hours notice, so thank you, and then I will turn it over to you to kind of go what got us here and let you address any questions we have.
That sounds great. All right, let me, in slideshow, let me go in presentation mode fast and we'll share screens. Could you make that so I can share screens, please? There we go, thank you. All right, let's move this into presentation mode real quick so that you can see this as a full screen. This was a quick turnaround, so I'm going to apologize up front. If you see any little typos, I promise to come back in and fix them. But I wanted to put together a presentation to follow up on what we had done last time we did an update. And just remind everybody kind of what we've already done to date, the process, the approach, and where we're at now. Any questions along the way, please stop me, and I'm happy to address them as we go. Can everybody hear me okay before I jump in?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, I can't see you, so that's good. Okay. All right. So I want to go through really quick, remind everybody what the study goals were, the project phases that we worked through, and then what those kind of recommendations are now. You know, your original study goals, we first did just what we would call a compensation study for you. That's where we're looking at those external market equities. How does your salary structure, your scales compare to those of your peers, to help you better attract those quality staff that you want to attract and have come to work there in the district. So the first goal was obviously external, look at those peers, and then produce those recommendations. So our original project approach was obviously kick the project off, go through, collect the data, understand your data, and then identify the peers that we were going to use as our targets, we call them, and then which classifications we were going to use as our benchmarks to go kind of measure you up against those peers with. And then we collect the data, we analyze that data, and prepare a draft summary of that. And then as we were working through that part of it and working with your internal data to then help develop those pay recommendations, there was a few things that became kind of obvious, and we had lots of discussions about these. And this was some of the stuff that we covered the last time. So we had several identified areas of need. On classifications, there was an inconsistency in your use of classifications, your job titles across departments. Not a consistent use of even how the job titles you had are being utilized. And you didn't have a defined hierarchy of classifications or alignment of pay grade assignments. And also your organizational structure, your central office structure and your assignment of roles, responsibilities, lacks some consistency in that. Your senior leadership structure versus the size of the district. What we were seeing with those peer organizations weren't lining up. It was evident that the structure with your central office organization was behind what your peers were using. And then for data management, your current data management system, HR and Finance, does not allow right now for data to be easily accessed or analyzed. You have some fabulous women there in your office that know the information, and I could talk to them and they could get information for me. It's not easily accessed, organized. It's in an old system that I don't think too many people even understand the commands for anymore. I know that's working to get updated, and that's something that we're hoping to be able to help you guys with along the way. So based on all of that, we added to this project. We decided to add the internal review. So to look at your current structure a lot more detailed, to do what we call our job assessment tool and apply that to all of your, administer that to all of your staff to find out more about their positions and what they do. And then we also came up there and met with your leadership staff, met with some of the school-based leadership staff to really understand what those areas of need were from a classification, organization, and hierarchy standpoint. Added onto your producing recommendations, not only for a market responsive pay plan, but a pay plan that addresses those internal needs as well. And then we also added a job description update and development of creation. A lot of your job descriptions are old. And then you have some jobs where you don't currently have a job description. So we're going to work with you guys on creating those. So our project approach update, we went back to those peer districts, the school districts, and asked them for staffing and operational level data. So we could develop that analysis for you. And then we also, like I said, conducted those orientation sessions, administered that job assessment tool, performed that job analysis, met with all of your folks there in person for about, I think, 3 or 4 days. We kind of took over a conference room and then reviewed all of that data with your leadership staff to talk about those necessary and needed changes to fit your organization and where you're at now. Took all that data from the market, from that job assessment tool, from all those meetings, from your focus group meetings, and developed an updated solution file for you with recommendations to your pay plans to create structure for you, to allow you something that's much more transparent and easy to use, explain, and understand. Provide recommendations to classification titles and hierarchies. Provide for some career progressions and career pathways so that people can grow in those areas that they've kind of chosen to build their career in. Provide an analysis or comparison of staffing level data across those different departments. And then also, like I said earlier, kind of assisting that QAQC of that data to help improve that import into new systems. So you start off good and with good data. And really where we're at right now is pulling all of that into these summary reports for you and then the job descriptions. So all of the files and everything else we've all done, now it's just putting it all into one document for you. Just a quick reminder, we touched on this last time, your assessment of current conditions. When we pulled the data originally, about 5,900 employees. Average tenure was a little over 9 years. Salary did appear to be closely tied with tenure on your certified scales. 42% of your employees, though, were paid below midpoint, 58% above midpoint. More of the classified were paid below midpoint than your certified. We did not have a complete listing of all of your classifications. One just didn't exist prior to this. The index that's applied for your administrative certified positions doesn't appear to follow best practices of separation between the levels. There's a lot of compression that's created with very small percentage adjustments. You have multiple pay plans. There are a lot of inconsistencies in how those are designed, between number of steps and the progression between the steps. You have a lot of employees that weren't assigned to a current pay grade. They have flat rate salaries. In your pay ranges, the average calculated range is 39.5%. That's very narrow. Best practice is somewhere between 50 and 70%. A reminder of your peers that we used for the market. Again, we did also some city and county peers as well, because we wanted to look at those other positions that can easily crosswalk between public sector agencies. Office staff, your accountants, finance, custodians, trades, electricians, those aren't necessarily tied to an instructional work. So we did some other local governments as well. And then we also applied a cost of living index to all of the data that we collected. And as a reminder, when we're looking at your data, we're looking at these classifications and doing these matches, we are looking at them based on the job duties and responsibilities. It's not a class title match, because as we all know, class titles don't always match. So we are looking at the functions of the positions to get the matches for you. We ended up with over 700 more. Now I've gone back and collected more data, but we had at least 700 right then, actual data points to compare with your salary schedules. And looking at those, we determined that you were at the market minimums. You're 4.9% above. That's looking across all departments, all classifications average. But as you'll see there, you're falling from being slightly above market at the 50th percentile. So we're just talking about market average, the top of the bell curve. So 50% of the people are below you, 50% above you. You'll see as you go across, does my mouse work here? As you go across from minimum to maximum, you lose ground pretty substantially due to that very narrow pay range that you have. So internal, just your focus groups, just want to give you guys an update on that, because this, I didn't get to tell you last time. We came up in person, last Thursday, we kind of took over the conference room for about a week and met with a lot of variety of folks in your central office. We met your leadership, we met with staff, we met with leadership from schools as well. We had really good conversations, very engaging. You guys have got great employees. When we did the survey to all employees, that's what we call our job assessment tool. We emailed that out. That was administered to all employees. Everybody had an opportunity to respond. Got a really great participation rate. It says over 50% participation. Some departments were even much, much higher. So we almost had 100% participation. So great input from your staff. For the in-person focus groups, what we heard is this is the positives. Why are people here? Why are you here? What's brought your employees here? And here's a lot of the reasons why folks told us that they're there at the district. It's the reputation, it's a quality place to work. A lot of respect for their peers. There's a lot of folks that are from the area, they grew up there, they're a product of the schools, and they're proud to be serving back in the school system that they grew up in, and then serving their communities. Salary benefits the stability of public sector, especially coming off of several dynamic years that we've had here recently. Compensation concerns, it's following what's going well. Here's the areas of concern. There's concern that some areas, some titles, some classifications are not competitive with peers or private sector. A significant number say that there was a lack of understanding or familiarity with the compensation system. They'd like more communication regarding how starting salaries are determined. More than half participants felt salaries weren't equitable internally. The raises or additives not consistently applied, and that's more kind of looking back historically. Classified employees were concerned about the level of compression between employees and supervisors. In regards to classifications, the titles, there's some that are very generic and don't really describe the position. Descriptions also don't include all roles and responsibilities, limited career progression, mentioned that earlier. There's a lack of job description in some areas, and then that inconsistent use of job titles. Now, with all of that information, building out your recommendations moving forward, what we were focused on was being competitive at the 50th percentile. We wanted to make sure that we provided you a plan that is consistent in its structure and design. That way, it's follows a progression from minimum to maximum that's very transparent. It makes sense when somebody picks it up and looks at it. It's easy to use, it's transparent. Adjust the additives to reflect the market and the organizational hierarchy, and then also address those identified areas of compression. And then moving forward, the recommendations here are going to be kind of implement those proposed plans to address that market competitiveness, the organizational hierarchy, the internal inequities. And when I say proposed plan, I'm talking about not just the paid plans themselves, but the classification work that we did with your staff there to create an organized hierarchy for you. Could it conduct small-scale salary surveys moving forward? I've got 25 plus years in the public sector. We all know that our documents are only as good as we keep them current and relevant. So review and update as needed, do those checks. If you're doing those on an annual basis, you should need a comprehensive for 5 years from now. Review, revise as appropriate, existing pay practice, your guidelines, to make sure that you are staying current with changes over time. And then our next steps is to finalize that summary report. I'm going to do a final meeting with, I'll call it final, not really final, another meeting with your leadership team there to just discuss any final tweaks or changes, update your job descriptions, and then of course we'll train your HR office on how to manage the plan moving forward. So let me come out of share screen. Is it gonna let me stop sharing screens? Stop share. There we go. Any questions?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, good. Thank you for that presentation. That was very good. There's more to like in here than there isn't, and I just have some questions about a few different items. One of those was, when you were talking about our peers, you listed 20 different peers. Is that right? Kind of in that group? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, yes, it was 20.
Okay, 20. What data was collected from those peers, other than the cost of living? I saw that was posted up there. What other data did we collect from them?
So we went back in 2 stages. So what we collected originally was their salary schedules for each of those classifications that we used as benchmarks to get their comparable salary scales. And then when we went back, we asked about staffing numbers by department.
Okay, so we actually, because I think there was another slide on there that listed 150 different positions that we kind of looked at. And so I guess my question on that was, when we're looking at the teachers, custodians, those type of positions, I think none of that's really what we're really, I'm not saying concerned about, but having questions about. One of the issues that we're having questions about is some of the things at the very top of the top of the channel, and some of those percentages. The differences there are a lot higher as far as the difference in the raise scale on versus our teachers, our custodians, those different ones. And there may be some validation to that. I guess my question or concern was regarding this was when we were doing these comparables to these other districts. For example, I'm just going to say one, bookkeeper, or just, I don't know what would be a great one, but I'll just use that as a general, and I'm not sure that would be in central office, but something along those lines. Would we then compare the salary of these other 20 different peers that we looked at to see what kind of average we are, and that's how you guys came up with that data as to make that recommendation? Because that's the kind of the piece of the puzzle we're missing.
So what happens is we have your 150 classifications that we use. And then we take those classifications and with their job descriptions and associated roles, responsibilities, the functions that they work at, and match those to a comparable position at the other districts. And, or obviously those are counties and cities, and then we look to see what those salary ranges are, and then we compile all of that data, apply your cost of living, and then do a percent difference to determine where you lie in relation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does kind of help a little bit. Do we have access to that data? Did you send that data?
Not the raw data or the data on an individual basis. Antitrust laws, whenever you're working with salary data, prohibits us from doing that. So that's why we give you the aggregate responses.
So, but we could see the averages
You can see that. You have the averages in the solution file.
in the solution file. Okay. Also, do you have the job? I don't even know if this is something that you looked at, but it was something that was kind of portrayed that was getting looked at. Is the amount of individuals in each department, and whether or not we're short or over.
That's where we went back. Yeah, that's where we went back in like the second round, the add-on for the project, to collect that data for you. And that data we are still compiling. That should be done any day now.
Now, you mentioned coming back for a final and updated summary. When do you anticipate that being?
Well, the summary report will include all the documents that you've seen on an individual basis, and I'm just pulling it together into one report.
Okay.
But when do I anticipate it? Soon. I'm actually going to be out of town the first part of next week, so I'm hoping right after that to get most of that wrapped up for you as a final draft.
Okay, but we could expect the amount of individuals in each department a little bit sooner than that. You said any day now, so that could possibly be this week?
Potentially, yeah. I need to talk to my analyst to get my update on that status.
Okay.
You did mention the central office staff and seeing some of those changes. I know it's a comment I made several times while I was up there. You guys have seen a phenomenal amount of growth in your district, and you've done a great job in the communities and meeting the resources, the needs of the communities with added resources, schools, staff. It's amazing. What hasn't happened though at the central office is, and that's why you see the data as the state that it's in, is I haven't had the opportunity, I'd say because of your growth and all the external outward facing work that you've been doing, to let the central office catch up to where you are as a district. Because I can tell you just anecdotally right now with your staffing numbers and what I've seen with some of the peer agencies are, there's definitely a few gaps.
I'm not sure if we're done or not, but hi, I think I saw you when you were in here in February, and we talked quite a bit, so it's great to see you. Also, I think people need to be aware how long you guys were camped out at the central office. You were here for a week, camping out, for a lot longer, and
yeah, they're in person for a week and virtually longer.
Yes, so you guys have been camping out here at central office for a while and visited. But there's some things in your presentation that I thought was a key takeaway that some people need to understand some clarity on. One is that the pay ranges were not consistent to best practices, so they were all over the place. And so when trying to bring them to a level where it was, as you had mentioned and told Dr. Sullivan, I think it was you were bringing us to 2010, when it came to the organizational structure. So changed a lot of the positions so that the titles in the new organization chart lined up with the responsibilities of a district of our size. And I believe there was a statement that you had mentioned that you couldn't believe that as a district that we were running the way that we are in regards to personnel at the central office. I believe that was a statement that was said.
It was a really good memory.
Oh, you're welcome. Another thing was that in the peer market at 100.6, Can you please elaborate a little bit what that means for Rutherford County? A peer index of 100.6 when you're looking into factoring your cost of living as applied for these salaries?
Right, so your cost of living index, what we did is we get that from the BLS. So we get that from, not BLS, we get that from the, oh goodness, it's late in the day and my mind just went blank. Yeah, Bureau of Labor Statistics, that is where we get it. But that was a number that they use to establish the cost of living in the different areas, all compared to the baseline of 100 at the national level. And so what we wanted to make sure that we did was bring everybody's value of their dollar to your dollar. So if they happened to be a peer where maybe the cost of living was less, a little bit cheaper than living right there in Rutherford, we brought it up to your value. If it was more, Williamson County, their cost of living was higher, so we brought theirs down to your level. That way we don't inflate or undervalue any of the different salary groups.
But you were but the cost of living, the peer market index was brought up to a level where it took into consideration of those factors about cost of living. And everyone from the top to the bottom, including central office, all the way to the very, very bottom, received that increase as part of the difference in the two different salaries between what they originally have and what the proposed pay scale. That was a percentage that was factored into that. The other thing was that the system that we have currently which is, I think the number, you had 5,900, but I was giving a different number, 5,900 and a little bit, just off by a few numbers. We're using a very antiquated system to be able to determine what those pay scales were going to be for every single individual in our district. And that there was also a lot of data cleanup that had not been done that your team had to do in order to get to what was the recommendations for these pay scales as well. We had to do a lot of cleanup on the back end. So it was not an easy task is what I'm trying to get at.
Agreed.
Yes, so I really appreciate you for going there and cleaning that up because that's, when it comes to data, that's a lot of work. So I appreciate that. And the other thing is that in the central office, in that slide, that the titles and the descriptions were brought to a level that was competitive, even though we cannot pay as a private sector, but they were raised to a comparable, competitive market peer.
We were. We did look at private sector in your area to look at a lot of salaries, for your classified staff, for your trades, for your office staff, because those positions easily can crosswalk into other areas. And 25 plus years in public sector, I would never say that public and private should pay the same salaries because there's different pros and cons to working on both sides. But you should at least try to be as competitive as possible.
And is it a fair and accurate statement that based upon that knowledge and then revising the organization structure that was brought to 2010, it lined up those salaries with your new recommendation or for the organizational chart for the district office, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for meeting with us today. This is Katie. I was curious because I printed out the market peer paper from the files that were sent to us today, and it had us at a 92.9 cost of living index. So did that change during your study?
92.9. I'm not sure which document that you're looking at.
It's the same graph that you showed, the market peers with the cost of living index listed.
That may have been me doing the math a different way instead of your baseline. So it's been updated to reflect 100.6, which is what is available there on the federal website.
Okay, so and I don't know if you know this or not, Dr. Sullivan, the stuff that we were sent, was that based off of this 92.9 or off of the newer figure?
You guys have everything that I have, so
No, I know that. I'm just saying, do we know if it was based off of the 92.9 or the higher cost of living index?
Stacy, can you answer that one?
It's based off the 100.6.
Okay. So this is
Yeah, I'm not sure, and I apologize, I don't have that in front of me, so I'm not sure what that number is without seeing it.
No, that's okay. Did you find, I know when we initially started on this salary study, I will speak for myself, and also some things that were mentioned at a meeting was that there was a feeling that there were some salaries that were adequate and within range. Do you know offhand if you found that to be true with any of our salaries, or did you feel they were all underpaid?
Are we talking salaries, or are you talking salary with the ranges?
I guess I'm talking like the salaries. So when you like pulled the averages together and we did the comparison, did you find that overall we were underpaying every salary, or did we have some that were adequate and didn't really need addressing? And if you don't know offhand, that's fine. Now that we know we have the averages, we can, I guess, find that file and go pull that.
You can. So the reason I'm pausing is there's a couple different things here. So while there may be an individual classification that is competitive with the market and doesn't need much of a change on the minimums, your ranges are still so narrow that if you don't adjust on the width of those ranges from minimum to maximum, you're still going to be falling off and losing people as they get a few years experience, that they're going to leave and go elsewhere because their earning potentials aren't the same as your peers. And then my other reason for the pause was, given that you didn't have a really defined structure and with your hierarchies in your classifications, it's hard to say you can't change one thing, because when you create a hierarchy of your classifications based on increasing levels of responsibility, some things may have to change out of necessity to the structure. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. One other question for you. With the classifications, I think you said you did 150 for us. Is that correct?
Yeah, we use 150 classifications as benchmarks.
Okay, so did we have classifications outside of that that you guys did not address?
There is some. 150 is quite a few of them, but given the variety of titles that you had at the time, we wanted to make sure we got a good representation of how you were using all the different titles. Was there some we did include? Absolutely. But we built this off a regression analysis for the solution file. So since it's regression analysis, I don't need every single one of them to be able to slot them all appropriately to a pay grade afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one more question. You mentioned adjusting some of on the competitive or adequate salaries that were already there. We still would need to adjust the pay range and stuff like that. And that makes sense, expanding that because it was too narrow. And I understand that. But I guess my question would be, could we adjust the range on a competitive or already adequate salary based on the information that we have in cost of living and such and comparables? We could adjust the range without raising an already competitive salary. Like, I guess what we're trying to do is not arbitrarily just raise. Well, I'm sorry?
Each of the implementation options that we evaluated with your leadership team they're all mathematically based, and they all are applied to everybody consistently. And so that way it's all equitable internally across all of your classifications. And some of your salaries, when you adjust them and correct them onto the new pay scales, if you don't adjust the salaries at the same time and you take what we call a bring to minimum approach, what you're doing is you're exacerbating the compression that you already have in place. If you're not allowing for separation of employees based on time, education, certifications, training, promotions into their positions, then you're compressing salaries. And we had some instances, if I remember correctly, where you had some supervisors making less than some of the direct reports because of some of that. So I would want to make sure, well, my recommendation would be to identify an approach that addresses as much of that as compression as possible.
And do you know how much our staff here, or leadership here, was a part of adjusting after the recommendations that you guys made? Or is it just like you guys make a list of recommendations and they typically make adjustments based after your recommendations?
So we go through a couple of rounds whenever we build a solution file for anybody. I mean, there's the initial solution file, and then it's what I call the fine-tuning of the solution file to make sure we're addressing the needs, the hierarchy needs, that there aren't any classifications we need to add, has any additional data come in. So that usually goes through a few rounds. I actually went through less rounds with your staff than we did others. Do people make changes afterwards? Sometimes for budget reasons, yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else, any questions?
Oh, I'm sorry, one last question before she goes. You still there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. On the department positions, now, will we be able to, I know you said you're limited on the amount of data that you can share. We'll be able to just get the averages of those comparable districts, right? So if we're looking at one particular department, we'll be able to see this department typically of a school district your size, based on your comparable peers, has X amount of positions in it, and you only have X amount of positions, or you're top heavy, or whatever. I don't imagine we're going to be top heavy, but.
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah, you're going to have that broken down by department.
Awesome.
Yeah, that would be part of that final. And then obviously then there's also, in that summary report, is also a market table that shows you the ranges and the comparables.
Just to verify, you said the ranges and the comparables will be available in the final report?
It's in the documents that have already been submitted, but it's all going to be compiled into one report for you, yes.
Okay.
So that was already submitted in the files, the comparables?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Thank you, Stacy. We appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. If any other questions, please just let me know.
Thank you so very much for all the work.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Mr. Tidwell, you're recognized.
I would like to, typically in Robert's Rules of Orders, you make the motion first, and so I'd like to start with the motion, then we can have the debate over the motion. The motion that I would like to make is based, well, I'll go into why I want to make it in a minute, but I'd like to make a motion to move forward with, as I understood it, R100 to R108, which is going to be our educators, custodial staff, EAs, cafeteria workers, basically most of our positions. And I would like to postpone the R109 through R120, according to their classification, which is some central office staff, to after the policy committee on, I believe, is that the 24th? Who knows?
24th, yes.
24th, to add that on the back. I would like to make that motion just to give us a little bit more time to go over some of the data. Plus, she is going to be sending us some more data about these department heads But I'll go into that, I guess, after the motion. That's my motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
May I
Yes.
interject something right here? According to TSBA, we need to make statements if we have relatives in the system before we discuss or vote on a matter. Before we discuss and vote on this matter, I want to disclose that I do have family members who work in our system. I will be discussing and voting on this matter based on what I believe is in the best interest of the school system as a whole.
Madam Chair, I also need to make the same comment. I would like to disclose that I have family members who attend schools in our school system and work in the school system. I will be discussing and voting on this matter based on what I believe is in the best interest of the school system as a whole.
Thank you, Mr. Young and Ms. Bratton. Anyone else?
On the discussion side of it, the reason that I made the motion is because of, there's, the way that this was presented was that there is a colossal study that's happening. We're going to collect that data, and then leadership is going to bring that to us, and we're going to present it to you. And that was done. Now, once that happens and you get that amount of data to go through, that's presented to the board, there's obviously going to be questions. And so we started looking and having some of this debate and questions. I think that's great. I think it's good for everybody. I think some of the confusion was, as today, some of the emails that I got, was that we were debating teacher salaries and EAs and custodial. And every one of us out of every mouth up here has pushed for all of those to be moved up. We're actually debating probably what amounts to maybe less than 1%, and that's up at the top, and that was from something that was sent to us recently. Now, do we have access to that before? Yes. When we asked for it to be compiled, that was brought recently. So there we discussed it, and that's kind of how the process works. Now, we also have some considerations when it comes to these different salaries and some of the higher percentages. So the ones that were coming in, they were at 10%, 14%, a good portion, 14%, all the way up to someone of 30+%. No one up here is arguing that might not be substantiated. What we're asking for is the data to prove it. We have constituents who are concerned about how we spend our money up here. That's why we're here. I think it's fair to have discussion. I'm open for debate. I don't think we should make it personal. I think we should keep it on the topic. And I think it would benefit this board, I should say, that if we were to just look closely at these few items, if it's substantiated, great. And if it is, you got some wiggle room, maybe we're already comparative, but we kind of arbitrarily rate someone up just because we didn't want them to feel left out or this group to feel left out or whatever, but they were already competitive. I think we need to look at that because she's going to come back, and this is another reason that I wanted to postpone it and ask her when we was going to get this data for just 1 week, which doesn't mess up our budget. We've already verified that. All it does is gives just a little more time for the board to be united and feel more comfortable to get the information that they deserve, so the way they ask for it, so that we can then make a decision we all feel comfortable with and can explain back to our constituents. Part of that, and this has been my last thing I'm saying on this, is if there is, I'm not saying there is, but if there is, and that's part of discussion, if there is savings, then when she comes back and says, hey man, in transportation, y'all got 3 people and y'all's comparables is 6, guess what's going to happen? Transportation is going to be asking us for 3 more positions. So the money just keeps coming. And so we start eating into he's signaling more. 7. Yeah. And so then that begins that whole discussion too. So I just don't want to do this irresponsibly. I want to do it conservatively. I'm sure others are going to have other opinions, but that is why I made the proposal that I did.
Madam Chair, there's a motion and no one has voted on it. Isn't part of Robert's rules, if there's a motion and it was second, that we take a roll call, before discussions are started. Is that correct, Jeff Reed?
Mr. Reed, no, we can have discussion first.
After it was second?
You have discussion after the second, yes. So the floor is open for discussion at this point.
Okay.
I would just like to say, Caleb really kind of explained very eloquently. Thank you for that. I share the similar concerns. One of the biggest reasons I think we want to make sure that we are really looking at this and doing this properly is, number one, when we raise salaries, that's a perpetual cost constantly. It's not something we can walk back. Nobody wants to put us in a more difficult financial situation. I would also say that looking at the overall percentages when thinking about our educators, our EAs, our custodians, and the percentage of the raise that we are offering to that in comparison to the average percentage of the central office salaried staff, it's almost triple. And I'm concerned about what that says to our educators, our EAs, our custodians. We were told that the salary study, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Sullivan, that they actually recommended us doing a little more than what we felt like we could financially do for the certified staff?
At the end of the scale.
Right. So on one hand, we're saying we can't do that for them, but the percentage discrepancy is quite wide. Again, not saying that it's wrong. If we can look at these averages and we can say, yes, justifiably, in order to be comparable, we've got to move this salary up 43% or whatever it is. If that's what the information states, then that's what it states. I just think we're trying to do our due diligence to make sure that we can substantiate that properly.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Sure, and you're recognized.
we hired a company to come in here and do this study. We also have a director here that has the autonomy to develop this pay scale. It's not up for us board members to get into the weeds and start digging and trying to figure out who's getting paid more or what department deserves this, what department doesn't deserve this. I will tell you that we are not paying our people what they deserve. We are, if you look at cost per student, we rank at 110 in our counties in the state of Tennessee. You move us up into the top 3 or 4, we wouldn't be having this discussion. We'd have more money than we know what to do with around here. But we don't, because our growth does not pay for itself. And we have been balancing our budgets for years in this county because we don't have the funds. We don't have the revenues. Now, my question is to Dr. Sullivan. Do you feel like you did your job, did your due diligence, and developed a pay scale that's fair and consistent for this?
Absolutely. 100%.
That's all I need to know.
I would like to make a statement. So yesterday, there was a lot of discussions during the work session about the pay increases for central office. The central office is made up of both classified and certified, which includes salary and hourly employees. And the justification for not moving forward with the recommendations by Evergreen Solutions was under the pretext that some positions are adequately paid. We've been in discussions with Evergreen Solutions for 8 months. Not only have we been in discussions with Evergreen Solutions for 8 months, they've also camped out over here in the office for 2 weeks. And any one of us had the privilege and the access to them if we had questions about the scope. I took that opportunity to ask questions about the scope so that when we got the deliverables, when they said that we needed to get them, I will understand what we were getting. And I took my time to ask those questions. And today, she even said that in those deliverables, because there was a question about the competitive pay and what was compared to, that was also included. So if the request is to review the central office personnel salaries, we need to look at how many employees are being impacted right now that we're considering. That is 522 employees. That includes employees that are assigned to a school. So the 522 is out of 5,690 total RCS employees. That is 8% that we're looking at. And if you subtract the number of employees that are assigned to a school, that number comes down to 263 employees that are in this building, including maintenance, that is 50. So these fine men and women that we're addressing are tasked with a lot. They're tasked to lead the workforce to drive our Rutherford County schools forward. And they're there to provide support to the 5,438 employees who make up this system. So I'm wondering, within all these departments that are here, whose pay scale salaries are going to be denied for pay increases? Are we talking about the adult high and RCS online? Are we talking about assessment? We're talking about athletics. How about the Atlas? Attendance, budget and finance, CTE, communications, IT, coordinated school health, director, engineering and construction, ESL PD center, federal programs, fine arts, health services, pre-K program, purchasing, human resources, instruction, instructional technology, JROTC, PD center, special education, legal, maintenance, material center, operator, payroll, response to intervention, counseling supervisors, school nutrition, school safety, Spectrum, Teach Now, transportation. If that's a lot of departments that require to run a district of this big, if the reasoning is based on adequate pay, there are certified staff that are whose salary is already at competitive. We are literally asking the superintendent to pick and choose positions whose work is valued more than others, while others are underappreciated for their service and loyalty to our Rutherford County schools. That, in my humble opinion, is an unfair assessment to make a decision without taking into consideration other contributing factors that require those day in and day out routines for all different Rutherford County school employees and make a fair adjustment on salaries. Secondly, you've already asked that question, but I want to also point this out. By Dr. Sullivan, he gave us an email to all of us back on April 12, 2023 at 2:46 p.m. And in this email, he stated that some board members wanted to change something, some board members, I took that out, but I've decided to list it because I think it's a very important. Well, I'm going to skip that, but in that email, he said that he was required by policy 5.110 to establish a salary for all employees and submit to the board for approval. And he also said in that email that implementation of the recommended scales does not require extra local revenue. And he said that the mayor and the county commissioners have asked departments to cut budgets, and he has reduced our ask to the legal required minimum maintenance of effort and are taking the increased allocations from TISA. So TISA that were meant to support education and staff races to implement these scales. And he also stated that the county general gave a 15% raise last year, while the county school system only gave a 5% raise. And most importantly, he said that his job is to support the educational system in RCS. And without employees, our system will fail. And he also said that if it was the will of the board to remove certain salaries out of the pay scale that is recommended, that he approved, that publicly he was going to state to the employees that he did not support it. So with that being said, just like Mr. Coy said, we hire you, Dr. Sullivan, to be the superintendent to lead this district and to establish a salary for all employees per policy 5.110. I also propose the following questions to the board. Doesn't our staff, including our central office personnel, contribute to their fair share of taxes to the county as well? And aren't they taxpayers who pay the salaries for elected officials like us, like school board members? We tend to give ourselves raises every month, and no one is complaining about how much our salaries are costing to taxpayers. We get paid for every work session, every board meeting, every executive session. If they do not fall in a scheduled board meeting, but so far, these meetings have been on a separate day. Every subcommittee attended. We get paid for every policy committee. And on top of that, we get travel reimbursements for conferences and training. And I learned recently that all board members get mileage pay for driving to and from for every board meeting. I did not even know that. So the more we meet, the more our monthly pay increases. So with that being said, I will say to the board, we need to practice what we preach. If we're wanting to save taxpayer money, let's start with us, the school board, and cut our meetings down to 2 and pay for travel expenses out of our pocketbooks. I, for one, stand with the central office. I stand with all RCS, from the top to the very, very bottom, because I support all RCS. Because like I had mentioned before in my statement, that we have forgotten that our employees are taxpayers as well. So I support approving the salary scales for 2023, 2024 as presented.
Call for question.
Thank you, Ms. Bratton. Would you call the vote, please, Ms. Hopkins?
Do we have 2 motions going, though?
No, just
one.
Read the motion again.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I have it if you don't have it. You have it? Okay.
The motion is made by Mr. Tidwell, seconded by Ms. Darby, to move forward with R100 through R108 and postpone R109 through R120 until after the policy committee meeting on 4/24. Is that correct?
Yeah, same day as the policy committee. Yeah.
Can I make a question? Just a certified and administrative indices. There's 3 scales. What are you recommending for certified and administrative?
The ones you sent us for the pay scale, it's only 200, I think it was 250 positions. That's the ones I want to look at.
Okay.
So if we need to change the R number, do we need to change it?
No, but certified staff aren't on an R, they're on a teacher's salary scale. And so that's why I was asking for clarification.
Sure.
Could I make a brief statement since I was not allowed to and everyone else was, quickly?
Called question. Point of order.
I withdraw the question.
I'll be very brief.
The question's been called. Once the question's called, there's no debate or discussion when the question's been called. There has to be a vote on the motion to call the question. So if that fails, there could be further discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Hopkins.
I'm sorry, are we voting on the call to question now, or are we
This is
voting on the motion?
Call the question. So this is a
Call
call
the
to go ahead and make a vote on the underlying motion. So this is a vote to call the question.
This is just
So
question.
this is a vote to go in and take a
Do
vote.
a yes is to agree with the call to question, and a no would be to not agree?
Yes cuts it off.
A yes cuts it off. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes cuts it off.
I'm just going to vote, cuts it off every vote, or?
This is calling the question, so this is just a motion to take a vote on it. So it cuts off debate.
The vote on the motion.
It cuts off debate if this motion passes. So it requires a 2/3 vote.
A yes ends debate, a no continues debate.
Correct.
That's why I asked that.
No, Ms. Hopkins.
Yes.
Yes.
That's a no.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
It is not passed.
Go ahead.
Has to pass by
Two-thirds.
So we go back to the original motion now.
Well, discussion, so the floor is back open for discussion now. Which is on the original motion, which was the motion that Mr. Tidwell made to move forward with R100 through R108, and postpone R109 through R120 until following the policy committee meeting on April 24th.
So let me say, I'm not unhappy with the work that Evergreen has given us. It was a large amount of data. However, what I am concerned about is us backing ourselves into a corner financially. We just asked our county commissioners for $160 million to fund 3 of our annexes. We are about to go back to them once we purchase the Beatty property, once it's finalized, to probably ask them for another $70 million for an elementary school on that property. We are looking at a tax increase for this county. We're in a recession, a depression, whatever you want to call it. Things are not good. My question to Dr. Sullivan was, let's look at these. There are likely some in there that are within range. Can we not look at these and if it's $15,000, give them $750 now, go through the budget process and see where we are cash position-wise? I just think it needs to be prudent. We have done before. We've given raises before, initially some up front. We've done some later. That's my position. I'm not unhappy with the work that they've done. They are a consultant, but that's why we are here. That's why we are elected officials, to make those decisions that the consultants give us, and we use that information to make decisions.
Mike.
Mr. Tidwell.
I'd just like to say something else about Madam Chair, about some of the issues that were raised. So as far as the rank that we are currently, by accepting my proposal, we will, just to delay. So we could still end up where we're at right now. All we're doing is asking for a little more time to look at things a little more closely. So I think that part should be clear. It's just a simple delay that doesn't hold back anything. But even if that does get passed, we'll move up the rank as far as where it was listed. Another thing is, it doesn't seem like there's any amount of money from those that are opposed, that any percentage that would give them pause. There are percentages that give me pause. As far as extra revenue, we're about to ask for an elementary school, after asking the county commission to go to the bond market for $156 million. And we're talking about using extra TISA funds, which, again, if it's substantiated, we can talk about. We're having that discussion. That's what we're here for. But as far as what the director recommends, it's a recommendation. It's not a guarantee. It isn't enforced upon the board. The board is above the director. We trust our director, and I think he's done a good job. We have some questions. That's why I keep going back to it. I don't understand why the questions are so scary. And there is no extra meeting. It's on the backside of a policy committee. So what I would ask is those that are opposed, I'm not saying that it is going, that all of these are not 99% of the 250 positions out of the almost 6,000 positions that we have. We're moving forward with a huge portion. The 250, we're asking for a delay for 1 week. Give us that grace to just look at that. I think that would be extended to you if I was on the outside of the fence there. That's all I'm asking for. We could be sitting here less than a week. We could be sitting here Monday and you could possibly have 7 yeses. We're just asking for scrutiny.
Ms. Hopkins, we want to go ahead and do a roll call?
Can you say the motion again?
Yes. Would you repeat the motion, please? In other words, it will be added to the policy committee meeting on Monday night.
Because you have to take action on this as part of your board meeting. So it'd be a Rutherford County Board of Education meeting. It would not be a policy committee meeting.
Right, but for clarification, it'll be on the back. There's no additional fees, any charges that same day.
It would be, it could, yeah, we can go ahead and do that without additional cost.
Thank you.
Call the roll. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
No.
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 That's a yes.
No.
Yes. Motion fails. I'll entertain another motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the salary study scales for the 2023-2024 as presented.
Second.
Would you do a roll call, please?
Yes.
Yes.
For all the reasons we discussed earlier, no.
Yes.
Yes.
I explained why. No.
No. Motion passes. Thank you so much for the discussion, y'all. Number 9.
All right, so number 9 is the change to the 23-24 calendar. This will actually, Mr. Evans, was this on tonight already?
It's been on Channel 4 this evening, and they're also going to do a follow-up once the board ratifies it.
Okay.
Assuming the board ratifies it.
Yes. So change the 23-24 calendar, request to use additional stockpile day for the 23-24 school year to make January 5th, 2024 an administrative day focused on school safety. Thank you, Ms. Darby and Ms. Sharp. That was y'all's suggestion, so I appreciate that.
Ms. Darby's.
Recommended approval, motion to approve to use an additional stockpile day for the 23-24 school year to make January 5th, 2024 an administrative day focused on school safety as presented. And again, that'll be all staff.
Dr. Sullivan, there's one clarification on that. There was a question day. There's also one scheduled for the beginning of the year.
Correct. We have administrative days at the very beginning of the year that's a focus also. Great point.
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to oppose or abstain? Motion passes to change our calendar. Is that number 10? I've got it.
Yep.
Number 10.
Number 10, the 22-23 tenure recommendation. The following teachers meet the criteria for tenure in accordance with the new tenure law. 1, hold a valid Tennessee teaching license. 2, has served Rutherford County Schools for 5 years, 45 months minimum with a 7-year period. The last 2 in a regular, not interim position. 3, has demonstrated an overall performance of above expectations or significantly above expectations on the team evaluation during the last 2 consecutive years of the 5-year period. Or 4, or if held tenure under the previous guidelines and returned to Rutherford County Schools meets the 2-year probationary period and tenure is reactivated. I know we've had a lot of discussion, but I would really hope I don't have to read all these names. So,
If you'll scroll through those, I'm okay with him not reading those
thank you
names.
very much.
Wheeler.
So recommended approval, motion to approve the recommendation of the Director of Schools to award tenure to the teachers who meet criteria for the 22-23 as presented.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Tidwell. Is there a second?
I'd like to second.
Thank you, Ms. Bratton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to abstain or oppose? Motion passes for our tenure for our teachers. Congratulations. Mr. Reed, would you read number 11 for us? Do you have it? The resolution?
I tried my best last night, Mr. Reed, but I'm not an attorney.
Okay, so this is the resolution we're talking about. Is whereas the Board of Education desires to continue providing voluntary plans for the employees of the Rutherford County Schools for the calendar year of 2024, and whereas the Standard and MetLife have been identified as the preferred providers for the voluntary plans, specifically group life, voluntary life, short-term disability, long-term disability, cancer, accident, and critical illness. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education approves staying with the Standard and MetLife for their respective voluntary plans for the calendar year of 2024 with the same benefits and rates. And be it further resolved that the county government will administer their portion of the plans and the Board of Education will administer their portion of the plans. So it's a motion to approve the Board of Education staying with the standard and MetLife for the respective voluntary plans for the calendar year of 2024 with the same benefits and rates as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. I'll entertain a motion.
I move.
Thank you, Ms. Maxwell. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you so much. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to oppose or abstain? Motion passes for ancillary resolution. Number 12.
And number 12, legal tab 3, so Ada County. Number 3, board has been requested to admit a transfer student from another school system under discipline. The student was suspended for 10 days for possession of THC. According to policy 6.318, the board may deny admission of any student except those in state custody when a student transfers from another school system while under suspension or expulsion. Director of Schools' recommendation is to admit and place in an alternative school. Recommended approval, motion to admit or deny the admission for this Ada County transfer student as presented.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Braxton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to abstain or oppose? Motion passes for the admission to alternative school. Thank you. Number 2.
Number 2, the board's been requested to admit a transfer student from another school system under discipline. This student was remanded to alternative school for numerous threats of physical harm and intimidation directed at teachers and school staff. According to policy 6.318, the board may deny admission of any student except those in state custody when a student transfers from another school system while under suspension or expulsion. Director of Schools' recommendation is to deny admission. Recommended approval, motion to admit or deny the admission for this Ada County transfer student as presented.
I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to deny.
Thank you, Ms. Breton. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to abstain? Motion passes. Number 3.
Number 3, the board's been requested to admit a transfer student from another school system under discipline. The student was expelled for possession of a weapon other than a firearm. According to policy 6.318, the board may deny admission of any student except those in state custody when a student transfers from another school system while under suspension or expulsion. Director of Schools' recommendation is to deny admission. Recommended approval, motion to admit or deny the admission for this Ada County transfer student as presented.
I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to deny.
Thank you, Mr. Tidwell. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you so much. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to abstain or oppose? Motion passes to deny. Roman number 2.
Madam Chairman, do you want me to read all of these policies? How would you like me to proceed?
Board members, are you okay with Dr. Sullivan?
We got a big screen behind us.
Yeah, that's fine. We pulled the ones yesterday, correct? Okay.
Just saying policy 4.407. Yeah.
All right, so this is our annual policy review, as Ms. Sharp mentioned last night. This will start to move to the consent agenda. This is part of the Board of Distinction to review these at least every 2 years. We do them every year. Policies that have not been reviewed or changed in the past calendar year will be reviewed. So you have A, Section 4, Instructional Services, Part 2, and I'll just read the numbers. Policy 4.407, 4.501, 4.502, 4.601, 4.6041, 4.6051, 4.606, 4.607, 4.608, 4.700, 4.701, 4.702, 4.800, 4.801, 4.802, 4.803, 4.804, 4.805, and 4.806. Recommend approval. Motion to review the above policies is presented. And I apologize, I caught the former math teacher in me, caught myself saying O instead of 0.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you so much. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to abstain or oppose? Motion passes. Number 13.
Number 13, purchase of Church Street property. Rutherford County Board of Education would like to enter into an agreement for the purchase and sale of property located 814 South Church Street, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, subject to a 90-day inspection period. Recommended approval. Motion to approve entering into a contract to purchase property at 814 South Church Street, subject to a 90-day inspection period as presented. And then we have the funding below it in the next one.
Mr. Reed, did you have an update on that?
We did reach an agreement with the seller on the purchase price of the property this afternoon. The purchase price would be $1,161,460. So it'd be $1,161,460. That is listed less than the listing price.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
The price would be $1,161,460. $460.
And that is contingent on all of our due diligences.
It would still be contingent on due diligence and the 90-day inspection period, everything coming back clean during that, and all the testing, everything else the school board will have to do during that process. This will come back to the board for you to vote on it again to proceed with actually closing on it.
Wait, hold on. This 1 million, that was appraisal? It was appraised?
No, this is the negotiation we had going back and forth for the purchase of the property.
Oh, okay.
So it was listed for 1.3. We offered an amount less than that, and the price that what we reached an agreement with
Okay.
was $1,161,460,
Okay, perfect.
and we can go from there.
Must have been some serious negotiation going on there.
Yes.
Yes, you did.
Thank you.
Down to
Did real good.
460.
Saved up.
And Mr. Lee will be bringing us the appraisal and all the other documentation and everything like that as it
Get
becomes
testing,
available.
appraisal done, all the usual stuff, and bring that back to the board after that's finished, and then you will have a chance to vote again whether you actually want to proceed with purchasing this property or not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Thank you, board members, for taking time to go and look at this piece of property. I think we need it for a alternative school. I don't know that we're going to be able to buy or build anywhere else in this county for what we're looking at. There is going to be some cost in renovation, but it's not going to be like the $60 million for an elementary or $70 million. So I will entertain a motion.
I'm very excited to move on forward.
Right behind
Thank
you,
you.
second.
Thank you.
I think that's
Thank you, sir.
it's great for what we need.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to abstain or oppose? Motion passes for the purchase of the Church Street property. Number 14.
Number 14 moves into the Financial Matters, tab 4, Fund 141, General Purpose School Budget Amendment. This amendment is to fund the purchase of the building and property, 814 South Church Street. This property is listed with Matthews Real Estate Investment Services, been negotiated to be acquired in the amount of, and I will read again that new number, $1,161,460. This property will be funded by amending General Purpose Fund 141 by decreasing 39,000 unassigned fund balance and increasing capital outlay account 76,100,799 other capital outlay in the amount of $1,161,460. Recommended approval, motion to approve the GPS fund budget amendment of $1,161,460 of both unassigned fund balance and capital outlay expenditures as presented in detail. As presented, again. Two as presented, don't know why it's there, but we'll go present it again.
Thank you, Mr. Runyon, for speaking on that last night and how we were going to put all of our eggs in one basket. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you so much. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to oppose or abstain? Motion passes to approve the GPS budget fund for the Church Street property. Number 2.
Number 2, Fund 189 Building Projects Request. This request is to purchase the Beatty property, which is in two separate appraisals, one for 59.1 acres at $4.5 million, and the second for the house at 2.29 acres at $730,000. Total for 61.39 acres is $5.23 million. Funding for this property will come from Fund 189 Building Projects, 99-100, 715 land account, and again, the board's already approved this. This is moving the money. Recommended approval, motion to approve the request to purchase the Beatty property, which conveys a total of 61.39 acres in the amount of $5,230,000. This purchase will be funded from Fund 189 Building Projects, 99-100, 750 land account as presented. We went over those details again, Mr. Runyon, last night.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the request to purchase the Beatty property, which conveys a total of 61.39 acres in the amount of $5,232,000. This purchase will be funded from Fund 189 Building Projects, 99-100, 715 land account as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to abstain or oppose? Motion passes for the request to purchase the Beatty property and move that money.
Thank you, board members. Ready for 15?
Is that a 1?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
All right, for 15, Facilities and Construction, tab 5, request for Smyrna Middle final change order. Wright Construction submitted change order number 1 for the Smyrna Middle School renovation project. This will also be the final change order to close the project. This is a deductive change order for $9,382. Engineering and Construction has reviewed the request and approves. Recommended acceptance of change order number 1 for a deduct of $9,382. Final contract amount will be $3,800,618. Recommended approval. Motion to approve the final change order request from Wright Construction from Smyrna Middle for a deduct of $9,382 and a final project cost of $3,800,618 is presented.
Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Mr. Tidwell, thank you, Ms. Rosales. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to abstain or oppose? Motion passes for the final change order for Stewart's Middle. Number 2. Are we going to do
I
that?
believe we tabled number.
We tabled this to the, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So number 3.
Number 3, emergency request for football field lighting for Smyrna and Laverne High Schools. Engineering has received pricing to replace poles and lights at Smyrna High School, $310,000, and Laverne High School, $320,000 due to the continued deterioration of the poles at both locations. Staff would request to utilize the Sourcewell purchase plan and award the contracts to Musco Lighting. Request not to exceed $650,000 utilizing ending fund balance of Fund 177. Materials are 10 to 12 weeks out at this time. Recommended approval. Motion to utilize the Sourcewell purchase plan for football field lighting and poles at Smyrna High School and Laverne High School is presented. Request not to exceed $650,000 from ending fund balance of Fund 177.
Move to approve, oh, sorry.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve?
Thank you, Ms.
Second.
Rosales. Thank you so much. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to abstain or oppose? Motion to take care of those light poles. Dr. Sutherland, we've got it done. Thank you so much.
Yep. Number 4, request for architectural service fees. Engineering and Construction is requesting to approve funding for architectural design services for the Beatty property. This request will be based on the anticipated construction costs in the 5-year plan, and the firm design fees will be presented to the board. Request is not to exceed $1.8 million for Phase 1 design only. Recommended approval. Motion to approve the request for funding. We actually, I believe, moved this to $900,000 yesterday, didn't we, Brian? Yes, sorry. Request is not to exceed $900,000 for Phase 1 design only. Recommended approval. Motion to approve the request for funding the architectural design fees for the Beatty property not to exceed $900,000 as presented. And just as a reminder, that's what is left from purchasing the Beatty property of all the extra money that we have moved into that account.
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to abstain or oppose? Motion passes to approve the funding for the architectural design for the Beatty property. Number 5.
Number 5, request for architectural service fees for 814 South Church Street. Request to be based on the anticipated construction renovation cost of $1.2 million. The anticipated use during Phase 1 of this project is for an additional alternative school to serve students in Rutherford County. Recommended approval. Motion to approve the architectural design fees of $50,000 to be funded out of 189 for the property at 814 South Church Street as presented.
Any comments or questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to abstain or oppose? Motion passes to approve the architectural design fees for the Church Street property. Number 6.
Number 6, request for structural review of proposed building purchase. Engineering and Construction requested contract with Structural Design Group to provide a structural review for the building being proposed for purchase to verify structural integrity. Structural Design Group has a long history with RCS, and their fee will not exceed $1,500, thanks to the great work by Mr. Lee. So recommended approval. Motion to approve to contract with Structural Design Group to provide a structural review of the building being proposed for purchase as presented.
Any questions or comments?
I need a clarification. Did you say $25,000 not to exceed or $1,500?
$1,500 is our new letter.
So that is a change?
Yes.
Correct.
And technically, that doesn't need board approval, but in transparency, before the
fine.
board to know.
But I just got a little confused because there was one number on the page and you said a different number. I just needed clarification. All right, thank you.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you. I think we got a second at the same time. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to abstain or oppose? Motion passes to approve the contract with Structural Design Group for the inspection of the Church Street property.
Number 16, if it's all right, Madam Chairman, I'd like to combine 16 and 18.
Yes, please.
All right, so 16, we will have budgets 143, 141, 177, and 189 presented to you at our next board meeting. That is part of our private act to make sure we get that to the county commission by May 15th. So we've reviewed 143. We talked about that one multiple times. It's again the cafeteria fund. 177 is our capital projects fund. You guys all have that list from our retreat. I don't believe anything's changed from that, has it, Mr. Lee?
There's a couple of minor changes, but I've sent that to you and Brian.
Perfect, and we will send that to the board just so that you have an idea of what 177 is. 189 is not really our fund to approve. That is the county commission's fund. That's our building projects, but we do talk about that. And then our general purpose school budget is 141. Couple other things. One, we want to give congratulations to our instruction department and to Dr. Halford. So we, for the 5th year in a row, were recognized as the best communities for music education school district. So only, I think there were 12 in all of the state. I believe it was 12.
Yeah, 12.
12 in the entire state, so congratulations. Also want to give a shout out to Trey. So Trey sometimes has to be the unsung hero and sometimes unfairly gets connected with some things that are not fun, but Trey, over the last 2 days, you've saved us probably close to $1.5 million. So greatly appreciate the work that you've done on some of these things. So. Last couple quick things I wanted to hit on, and then I'm going to ask Dr. Chastain if you can give a condensed version of 3rd grade in just a minute.
Put me on the spot at 7:45.
Yeah, I'm going to put you on yeah, congratulations. Not like that's a fun topic or anything to talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about kids.
Yes. So a couple quick things. We are going to have to look at Madam Chairman, to set a committee to name schools. And so we're going to have an alternative school and the Beatty property, and there's a policy for naming schools. Okay. So that is going to have to come up sooner rather than later. If it's all right, I'll turn it over to Dr. Chastain to give us an update on 3rd grade.
I'll be extremely brief, but this will need further conversation, as you are all aware. I've given all of you a chart that explains, I think in the most condensed fashion possible, all the pathways that our students across the state have to reach the 4th grade. This is all under the current law with no changes for any considerations that are currently being debated in the legislature. So this is also, all of this has been updated on our website. So there's still a banner link for the 3rd grade retention/promotion policy. So if parents or if community members want to click on that, it will take them all to the updated resources. The only other thing I wanted to make sure to highlight, on that website there is a Rutherford County specific timeline. So you can take a look at when we will be giving our final universal screener, which can be used in parent appeals. You can look at when our summer camps start. You can look at when we will be conducting those retake options, which is again explained in this infographic. Those retake options will be conducted on site at all of our schools during the school day, May 22nd through 24th. So all of those specific RCS deadlines and timelines are on the website currently. So happy to answer any questions after, but I'm sure we'll be talking some more soon. We're doing a town hall with Murfreesboro Baptist tomorrow? First Baptist, apologies, where we'll be talking about this with some community members as well.
At what time?
6 o'clock, I believe, is when it starts.
First Baptist Church?
In Murfreesboro, yes, ma'am.
East Castle.
Yes.
Wasn't sure we'd be back.
There's 2.
Yeah, it's Pastor McCarroll's church, and it's at 6.
I don't know who that is, but.
And I wasn't sure that we would be back by that point, so Dr. Chastain is filling in for me, so I appreciate that.
Can you send us the address to that church?
Yes, we can do that.
We should be back by the choir performance tomorrow, correct? Oh, it's 4 to 6?
Probably not, yeah.
Probably not.
Dr. Sullivan, I know we usually recognize our teachers and our principals in the audience, and some have already left, but I don't, would you please?
I will. So principal, staff, I know we've had a lot of debate around salary, but please know I don't think that's anybody's intention. Regardless of what a vote happens to be of the work that you do each and every day, I'm honored to lead and serve alongside each and every one of you every single day, so I appreciate your support and appreciate our teachers and everyone that showed up, so thank you guys. One other quick shout out is our testing teams. So we have several testing coordinators who I know are here because I see several of them as assistant principals or counselors to let you know how big TCAP is in our county. So this is just a quick rundown. We have 3,020 second graders. Each second grader is an optional test, takes 6 different subparts. Second grade alone, we administer 18,120 subpart tests to second grade students. If you are looking at 2nd through 5th grade alone, we are serving about 69,352 subparts. Middle school, because all 4 subjects, math, science, English, social studies, are all tested in middle school, you're looking at 143,495. High school, you are looking at 84,636, so roughly about 297,400 different subparts are given during these 3 weeks. For the students who emailed me who were upset that we turned off YouTube, I'm sorry we turned off YouTube. But we had to make sure that streaming didn't impact us' ability to give a test, so I apologize to all of you.
It's DoorDash, now it's YouTube.
Yes, it is. So that's all I have, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Rosales, do you have anything for the federal or anything?
Not this week.
Okay. Are they going to sign it out this week or next week?
Well, the Senate, I was told when I was there on Monday, I spoke with one of the senators that they were trying to close out this week. So we'll see.
Okay, thank you so much. General discussion, there are several members that are board members that will be going. Poor Dr. Sullivan is going to escort us to Opryland Hotel.
I'm driving, so
And yes, so
it's going to be fun.
So we're going to go in conjunction with our music, see several choirs. They are recording, and they will be, y'all look for the link because they're going to sell those CDs. And it's quite the honor because this is sort of a state convention, and several of our schools were the only schools that were invited to attend this meeting. So we're really excited about it, and excited to see them to perform. Anybody else?
The grant writer position, have we filled it yet?
Dr. Chastain, do you want to hit on that? So we're going to bring that up to the board as a potential voting change. I'll let you hit on a little bit. You know the details better than I do.
Yeah, and I apologize, I don't have the names of the companies in front of me, but we have done some research. I think several of you actually helped us with this. So there is a company that we can contract with and target specific grants and kind of hire them as a retainer, and they will work as much or as little as we need them to. So our thoughts internally were perhaps that might be a more targeted approach to make sure we're able to get somebody with the experience that we're looking for to be successful in that endeavor.
Thank you so much. I'll entertain a motion for.
I have a letter that a constituent asked me to read that was unable to attend this evening. He said, I am writing today as a parent who supports both school choice and ACE Rutherford's efforts to establish a school in Rutherford County. As a parent of 4 children, ages 9 and younger, 2 of which are currently in the Rutherford County school system, I am wholeheartedly in favor of ACE Rutherford County and fully support their efforts to establish a public charter school inside Rutherford County. Currently, our residence has us zoned to an elementary school with great leadership and staffing, a blessing not shared by all Rutherford County parents. While I know we are blessed with our current school, I know not all Rutherford County parents share the same sentiment towards their child's school. My wife and I both value a solid educational foundation and would apply for ACE because of the classical curriculum used. Classical curriculum better prepares the student to meet and exceed both in and outside of the classroom. Our experience with the current curriculum utilized by RCS has been lukewarm, and while we have been pleased with our teachers and administrators, the curriculum that RCS has adopted for our public schools is subpar. I, along with many other RCS parents, am concerned with annual performance on Tennessee readiness. Year after year, the results show that a majority of RCS students do not meet expectations in both ELA and math, and in the same breath, we are told RCS is above state average. I'm not concerned with the state average. I'm concerned with my Rutherford County students and ensuring they have the best educational opportunities available, be it public, private, or home. As a parent of a current 3rd grade student, this concern is only amplified in light of the new Tennessee 3rd grade retention law that places consequences on a test. Over half of RCS students do not meet or exceed ELA requirements required for promotion. Some in attendance will likely argue that tax dollars would be diverted from public schools to charter schools, and that's correct. Funds will be diverted from the public school that would have previously been responsible for educating the child to the charter school that the child will now be enrolled in. Simply stated, if a child goes to Christiana in 2022 and then to Rockville in 2023, you would not expect Christiana to continue to be funded for a child that enrolled in a new school. Remember, charter schools are public schools and entitled to the same funding as all schools in RCS. Taxpayers do not pay school systems to educate empty seats. We pay to educate a student. No per student funding. As parents, we simply want an alternative choice within Rutherford County. Not all children are the same, and as some of you on the board who previously were educators would attest, not all children excel from the same teaching methods and curriculum. We ask that you allow parents to have a choice in their child's education on a personal level. Given my understanding of ACE and their curriculum, if approved, I will be applying for my children to attend when they open. Sorry, I tried to read it fast because I know everybody's ready to go.
We have one more thing. We have a birthday in the house. Miss Katie has a birthday this weekend, and the school board actually has their own personal baker, Mr. Tidwell's daughter, and she's perfecting her techniques on this. So,
She's 8 years old.
so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, and if those who want to stay and have some cake, I think we've got enough.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, Ms. Breton. We adjourn.